Hi, my name is Ned Kock. I'm going to, in this presentation, make a case for the use of the waist-to-weight ratio as a way of identifying your optimal weight. So it's not very easy for someone to identify one's optimal weight. If you were to look at empirical evidence related to mortality and optimal weight, you probably find out that, at least in urban societies, being a little overweight seems to be optimal from a health perspective. This may be the case for some individuals and for others, and it may be influenced by a number of factors. What I'm going to argue in this presentation is that one common trait of people who are maximizing their health by being at the optimal weight is that they are minimizing their waist-to-weight ratio. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Hi, my name is Ned Kock. My presentation is titled, "What is Your Ideal Weight?" I am the editor of the Health Correlator blog. My website is nedkock.com, and if you go there, you're going to see a link to the Health Correlator blog. On this slide, we have a ratio, which is under normal circumstances. This ratio is the one that wants to maximize in order to find one's optimal weight. And the ratio is the ratio between lean body mass and total mass. So the ratio of lean body mass and total mass is a good target for finding one's weight, optimal weight, and it should be maximized. Now, lean body mass is very difficult to measure. If you need to measure lean body mass every day or very regularly, it would be very difficult to do so. And T, on the other hand, which is total mass, can be measured easily as one's total weight. Now, if we take that ratio, L divided by T, and do some simple algebraic manipulations on it, we get to another expression, which is 1 minus F divided by T, where F is one's total fat mass, T is still total mass, and based on this ratio, based on this expression, which has a ratio 1 minus that ratio of F divided by T, we can say that since we want to maximize L divided by T, one should maximize 1 minus F divided by T, which is essentially minimizing the ratio F divided by T. So what we want to do is to find our optimal weight. We want to minimize the ratio of body fat mass and total weight. Now, this is something that most empirical research suggests. There is nothing controversial about this statement. What may surprise the audience, those who are viewing this presentation, is that we're arguing that minimization of the ratio is important, instead of saying that we should minimize body fat mass. So one could simply say, why don't I just minimize my body fat percentage? Well, the problem with this is that body fat percentage, one, is difficult to measure with precision, but more importantly, body fat percentage is associated with lean body mass and also with weight in a nonlinear way. We're going to see an illustration of this in a few slides. But what we're arguing here, what the problem here that prevents us from just trying to reduce body fat as the main goal, is that as body fat percentage goes down, it is difficult for an individual to retain lean body mass. And lean body mass is non-fat mass, and that includes structural tissues, bone, organs, and so on. So, and lean organs, right? Muscle tissue, and so on. And if you lose too much lean body mass, the evidence that we have out there is that you will suffer, your health will suffer. So there seems to be an optimal point. It's a U-curve relationship where you have health going down as health going up as body fat mass is reduced, but then health starts suffering as body fat mass is reduced beyond a certain point, simply because it's difficult to retain lean body mass as body fat percentage goes down. So it's not a game of simply reducing body fat or reducing one's body fat percentage. There is an optimal point, and that's the point of this presentation. And the main argument that we're making here is that there is a ratio which is very easy to measure, and that ratio is the one that you should try to minimize. So it becomes, as I just said, it becomes increasingly difficult to retain lean body mass as one's body fat percentage goes down. Mathematically, body fat percentage, which is the ratio of fat mass divided by total mass, is a nonlinear function of total mass, where this function has the shape of a J-curve. In other words, six-pack abs may look good, but many people would have to sacrifice too much lean body mass for their own good to get there, to show a six-pack. Genetics plays a role here, as well as other factors such as age, and also whether one lives in an urban environment as part of an urban population or not. There are calorie expenditure patterns and a number of other issues that come into play when you look at how much body fat one has to retain in order to retain enough lean body mass so that that ratio leads to optimal health. And this is counterintuitive. One thing we see in the empirical literature of the optimal BMI, body mass index, in urban populations is that it tends to be the BMI of lowest mortality over a period of time tends to be around 25, 26, which is borderline overweight. So people who have a lower BMI and who are very likely much leaner, they tend to have a higher probability of death than people who are a little bit overweight. Now, this is in urban societies. In non-urban societies, we see a different trend. We see a lower BMI of lowest mortality. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the amount of body fat that one has to have depends on one's circumstances, total calorie expenditure, and other factors such as age. So now we get to the waist to weight ratio. So to facilitate measurement, we can replace F, total fat mass, with a variable that is highly correlated with it. and that captures one or more important dimensions particularly well, dimensions associated with body fat, and particularly damaging body fat. And we know from the empirical literature in health journals, as well as in medical journals, or more specifically in medical journals, that the most damaging type of body fat is visceral body fat. And this visceral body fat is accumulated around the organs within the abdominal cavity. So in order to come up with a variable that is a good proxy for F, we could use, and this is seen in the literature, we could use waist circumference, because it is a measure of, it is a variable that is associated, that's highly correlated, it's a proxy for body fat, and particularly a damaging type of body fat, because someone who has a great deal of visceral fat will have a larger waist circumference. So we refer to this as W. So therefore, the ratio that most of us would probably want to minimize in order to reach our optimal weight is the following: W divided by T, where W is waist circumference. So that would be the waist to weight ratio. So if you want to measure your waist to weight ratio, just choose a measurement unit for each one of them. It doesn't matter as long as you use the same measurement units when you come up with these ratios. So you can choose waist to measure waist based on inches, and you could choose to measure weight in pounds, and you just measure your waist with a tape in inches. Let's say you get 35, and then divide it by your weight. Let's say you weigh 170 pounds, so you divide waist by weight, you get the waist to weight ratio. Now, there is an experiment called the fit to fat to fit experiment, where Drew Manning, and he blogged about this extensively and received quite a lot of media exposure. So Drew Manning, a personal trainer, decided to undergo a transformation where he went from what he argued was his fittest level all the way to obese and then back to fit again. His fittest level was at 193 pounds. Now you see on the screen a graph with waist to weight ratios based on the measurements that he published online. And what happened was that he gained weight and became obese and reached the weight of 264.8 pounds. Then he lost weight up to the optimal level, which was 193, but he lost a little bit more than he set a certain period of time, certain number of months, and he planned on losing all of that body fat that he gained in that period of time. Now, since he wanted to make sure that he met his goal, he exaggerated a little bit on the calorie restriction and exercise that he was doing when he was going from obese to fit again. So he was fit initially, then he became obese, then he became fit again. But he overdid. He actually went a little bit too far on the lean side and reached the weight of 190.1 pounds. And he is tall, he's 6'2", I believe. So at that point, he admittedly, he said that he felt he was a little too skinny and he was not feeling as fit or as well as he felt at 193 pounds. Now, I actually measured the waist to weight ratio, and here you can clearly see the J curve that we refer to. So as he lost weight, his waist went down, but his total weight went down as well. So that led to an increase in the waist to weight ratio. And our argument in this presentation is that this is not good. This was better. So this point here at 193 pounds was better than this point here with 190.1 pounds. And of course, this was the worst of all, and he was obese here. So as you get too lean, and his waist was smaller here. So at this point, when he weighed 190.1 pounds, his waist was smaller, but the amount of lean body mass that he lost proportionally to the amount of fat mass that he lost was too high. And this is why I would argue that this is not his ideal weight. His ideal weight is more around 193, which he agrees to. He feels better at this weight. It is important that he feels better at this weight because he is a personal trainer and he is trained to identify those situations where a person is deviating from the optimal in terms of health. And he identified that for himself. So he was paying attention to that for himself, and he felt that he was not feeling as well. He was too skinny at 190.1 pounds. Another interesting example of the waist to weight ratio is the John Stone transformation. John Stone is a bodybuilder and founder of a bodybuilding and fitness website, and he published extensively about his transformation on the web. He provided several pictures and stats of his transformation, where he went from obese, here on the left, to all the way to very lean and then more muscular. So when we look at these photos, we see that at this point when he was obese, he had a waist of 44 inches and a weight of 215 pounds. I believe he is 5'10", 5'11". So that led to a waist to weight ratio of 0.2047. Now, then he became fairly lean in a relatively short period of time, and he went from 44-inch waist to a 31.25-inch waist. So that's this picture here. And then he weighed 160.2 pounds. That led to a waist to weight ratio of 0.1951. Then, over time, he gained more lean body mass, and his waist increased a little bit. So in 2006, February 2006, he had a waist of 34.75 inches, weighing 225 pounds. At this point, he had a waist to weight ratio of 0.1544. And then in 2009, January 2009, his waist went down. He probably combined the calorie restriction with weight training. Often professional bodybuilders, whether they are natural bodybuilders or bodybuilders that take drugs to performance enhancing drugs that are allowed in professional bodybuilding, non-natural professional bodybuilding. So they tend to lose a little bit of body fat and try to retain their lean mass, but it's difficult. And you can see that, and this is the foundation. This is the idea behind the waist to weight ratio. So he did lose some body fat, and he lost some total weight. And in January 2009, he had a waist of 34 inches and a weight of 220 pounds. This waist to weight ratio 0.1544 is actually identical to this one. But I would argue that this, what he achieved in January 2009, is better because he is weighing less, and total weight places some stress on joints, and because of that, I think that if you have the same waist to weight ratio in two situations, but at a lower weight in one of them, you're better off in that particular state where you have the lower weight, as long as the waist to weight ratio is the same. Now, we don't know if this waist to weight ratio is the ideal for him because we don't have other measurements here on the screen. But this clearly appears to be better than this one. So in other words, either of these states here on the right, two pictures, two photos on the right, either of the states here seem to be better than this one, which is a bit too skinny, although this is better than this obese state on the left. So this illustrates the waist to weight ratio theory that we're proposing here. So at this point, he was a little too skinny. He lost body fat, and again, he achieved a very small waist, arguably 31.25 inches, but he lost too much lean body mass at this point. So see, he sacrificed too much lean body mass to the point that maybe this is, we would argue, less healthy than one of these states, and probably associated with lowest mortality. And what we're saying here is consistent with the evidence that we see from empirical studies of the optimal BMI, or the BMI of lowest mortality, which is around 25 or so, which is more consistent with this state here. Even though he's far from chubby, but you can see that the six-pack, the abs, they show more here in this state, but again, arguably too skinny a state. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I didn't want it to be too technical in the beginning, too mathematical, so I tried to simplify it as much as possible. I did not even discuss the fact that you have to take to identify the minimum waist to weight ratio, or to get there. Part of the argument is based on differential calculus, so I didn't even get to that. I hope it was not too technical, but the idea is simple. If you want to find your ideal weight, we argue that you should try to find a weight that minimizes your waist to weight ratio, and that will change based on what you do, your genetics, the amount of exercise you engage in, your calorie consumption, as well as other factors such as age, hormonal status, and so on. Thank you very much.